My father had a secret son for 19 years. When the truth came out, he wanted me to give half my apartment to this brother I never knew existed. I thought I knew my family. I really did. My parents have been married for 30 years. Stable home, normal childhood, nothing extraordinary but nothing terrible either. My father was always a bit distant, worked long hours, traveled for business conferences, spent weekends in his home office catching up on emails, but he was present enough. He showed up to my high school graduation. He helped me move into my college dorm. He shook my hand firmly when I got my first real job. My mother was the emotional center of our household, the one who remembered birthdays and organized holiday dinners and actually asked how I was feeling when something went wrong. She held everything together while my father provided the structure, the stability, the practical foundation. I grew up as an only child. That came with its lonely moments. No one to play with during summer vacations, no sibling to complain about homework with, no built-in ally when my parents were being unreasonable. But it also meant undivided attention, resources going to one kid instead of being split, a clear path forward without competition or comparison. I never felt deprived. I felt lucky, actually. A normal family with a normal story. At 26, I bought my first apartment. $147,000. I saved for 8 years, through college, through my first crappy jobs, through the years of living in tiny shared rentals with roommates who never cleaned the bathroom. Every month, I set aside what I could. Sometimes it was $500. Sometimes it was $50. But I kept going, kept building, kept watching that savings account grow digit by digit until I had enough for a down payment and closing costs. My parents helped with nothing financially. They didn't have extra, and I never asked. But they were proud when I got the keys. My mother cried. My father clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You did good, son." That apartment was my proudest achievement. Still is. The physical proof that I could build something real through patience and discipline and sacrifice. The foundation of my future security. Until 6 months ago, when my father sat my mother and me down for something important. I expected health news. Maybe retirement plans. Perhaps an announcement that they were thinking of moving somewhere warmer now that my father was approaching 60. I did not expect what came next. "I have something to confess," my father said. His voice was strange, hollow, rehearsed, like he'd practiced these words 100 times in the mirror. 20 years ago, I had an affair. There was a child. A son. He's 19 now. His mother passed away recently, and he reached out to me. "I've done a DNA test. He's mine." I watched my mother's face collapse. 30 years of marriage recontextualized in a single sentence. A son nobody knew about. A betrayal 2 decades old, surfacing now because a woman had died and a boy had nowhere else to turn. The silence in that living room lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour. Update 1. The aftermath. The family imploded quietly. There were no screaming matches, no thrown dishes, no dramatic confrontations. Just a slow, suffocating implosion of everything we thought we knew about each other. My mother moved to her sister's house for a month. She didn't make any announcements or ultimatums. She just packed a bag one morning, said she needed time to think, and left. My father didn't try to stop her. I think he knew he'd lost the right to ask her to stay. I didn't know how to talk to him. The man I'd respected my entire life was suddenly a stranger who'd been lying since I was 8 years old. Every memory felt contaminated now. Every business trip, every late night at the office, every moment he seemed distracted or distant. Was he thinking about them? The other woman, the other son, the other life he'd built and then abandoned? The half-brother existed somewhere out there. A real person with my father's DNA, raised without my father's presence, now orphaned and reaching out for connection. I learned bits about him through my father's guilty confessions, which came in waves during those first few weeks. He seemed compelled to tell me everything, as if the truth would somehow absolve him if only he could get it all out. His mother was a woman my father met at a work conference. The affair lasted about a year, hotel rooms in other cities, lies about extended business trips, a double life that must have required constant vigilance to maintain. When she got pregnant, my father panicked. He ended things abruptly, sent money occasionally but never visited, never acknowledged paternity publicly, never told anyone in our family that he'd fathered another child. The mother raised the boy alone. Multiple jobs, tiny apartments, no support system beyond what she could cobble together herself. She never told her son who his father was until she was dying of cancer, when she finally gave him my father's name and the few photos she'd kept from their brief relationship. The boy grew up poor. Struggled in school without tutoring or resources. Never went to college because there was no money and no one to guide him through the application process. Now he works at a warehouse, makes barely enough to cover rent, has no savings, no prospects, no safety net. His life has been hard in ways mine never was. I felt everything at once: anger at my father's betrayal, confusion about this new brother who'd materialized from nowhere, sympathy for someone who'd lost their only parent and was now grasping for any family connection he could find. But sympathy didn't mean I owed anything. That distinction would become important very soon. Update 2. The demand. My father's guilt is consuming him. I can see it in the way he's aged 10 years in 6 months, in the tremor in his hands when he pours his morning coffee, in the way he can't meet my eyes during conversation. He can't undo 19 years of absence. Can't bring back the boy's mother. Can't give him back a childhood with a father. But he desperately wants to do something now, and that something, I discovered, involves my assets. He presented it to me about 2 months after the initial revelation, once things had settled into a kind of terrible normalcy. My mother had returned home but slept in the guest room. My father and I had started talking again, cautiously, about practical matters if not emotional ones. And then one evening, he asked to speak with me privately. "I've been thinking," he said, "about how to make things right with your brother." I noticed the phrasing immediately. Your brother. Not my other son, or the boy, or even his name. Already my father was trying to make this my relationship too, my responsibility. "I failed him for 19 years, my father continued. "I can't make that up. There's no amount of apology that fixes abandonment. But you had everything I didn't give him. A good home, a good education, stability, opportunity. You have an apartment now. He has nothing." He paused, and I felt my stomach drop because I suddenly knew where this was going. "If you gave him half the apartment," my father said carefully, "it would be like balancing the scales. Compensation for what I took from him by not being there. You could co-own it, or sell it and split the proceeds. Either way, he would have something real, something valuable, something that represents the years he was denied." I stared at my father. "You want me to pay for your affair? With my apartment?" He flinched. "It's not about punishment. It's about fairness. He's your brother. He has nothing. You have something you can share." "Dad," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, "you abandoned him." "Not me. I didn't even know he existed until 2 months ago. My apartment isn't compensation for your choices. If you want to make things right, use your resources. Your savings. Your pension. Your house. Why does your guilt require my sacrifice?" My father's face crumpled slightly, but he pressed on. "I don't have liquid assets. The house is mortgaged. My retirement is for your mother and me. We'll need it as we age. But you're young. You're successful. You can rebuild. He can't. He's starting from nothing. You're not really giving anything up. You're just sharing something to gain a brother. That's not sacrifice. That's family." I noted the logic with cold clarity. My father's resources were protected for my father. My resources were available for redistribution. His guilt, his problem, but my solution. The double standard was glaring, but he seemed completely blind to it. Update 3. The meeting. My father arranged for me to meet my half-brother about a week after our conversation. I agreed partly out of curiosity, partly out of some residual guilt for having what this person never had. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Neutral ground, public space, easy escape route if things went badly. He was nervous when he arrived. Awkward, clearly uncomfortable, wearing clothes that were clean but worn at the edges. And he looked like me. Not identical, but there was something in the eyes, the jawline, the way his mouth pulled to one side when he was thinking. It was unsettling, like looking at a photograph of a path not taken. We talked cautiously at first. Weather, the coffee, small talk that circled around the enormous elephant in the room. Then gradually, the real conversation emerged. His story was genuinely sad. The poverty, the struggling mother who worked herself to exhaustion trying to provide, the absence of any father figure, the dead-end jobs and lack of direction. He'd never had anyone to guide him, to tell him what was possible, to believe that he could be more than what his circumstances suggested. I found myself liking him, despite everything. He wasn't entitled or demanding. He seemed almost embarrassed to be there, as if he was taking up space he hadn't earned. And then I noticed something. He hadn't mentioned the apartment. Not once. "Has our father talked to you about his idea?" I asked directly. "About my apartment?" My half-brother looked confused. "He mentioned you had an apartment. Said you were doing well." "Why?" That's when I realized the truth. My father hadn't told him about the transfer demand. This wasn't my half-brother asking for compensation. This was my father using my guilt to solve his own guilt. My half-brother was a prop in my father's redemption theater, not an active participant in any scheme to take my assets. "Never mind," I said. "It's not important right now." But it was important. It changed everything. Update 4. The Confrontation. I confronted my father the next day. "He doesn't even know you're asking me to give him half my apartment," I said. "This isn't about what he needs. This is about what you need. Absolution. You want to feel like you've done something for him, but you want me to pay for it. That's not making things right. That's transferring your guilt bill to my account." My father's face crumpled completely. He started crying, not the dignified tears of a proud man humbled, but the ugly, gasping sobs of someone who's been carrying a weight too heavy to bear alone. "I've lived with this for 19 years, he choked out. "Every time I looked at you, I thought about him. What he was missing. What I was denying him by my cowardice. I was a coward then, and I'm a coward now. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to be his father at this point. It's too late for that. I thought if he had something concrete, something real, something valuable, it would mean I didn't completely destroy his life. I know it's not fair to ask you. I know. But I don't know what else to do." I felt for him. Genuinely. The man was being destroyed by guilt, drowning in a mistake he could never unmake. The affair was terrible, but the abandonment was worse, and the 19 years of silence worst of all. He'd built a wall around that secret, and now the wall had collapsed, and he was buried in the rubble of his own choices. But empathy doesn't mean compliance. "Dad," I said quietly, "I'm sorry you're suffering. I'm sorry he grew up without you. But my apartment isn't a bandage for your wound. I worked for that apartment. I saved for 8 years. I built that security myself, dollar by dollar, sacrifice by sacrifice. Giving it away won't heal your guilt. It won't give him back his childhood. It will just make me a victim of your choices too. And I won't do that." He nodded slowly, the fight draining out of him. He didn't argue. I think some part of him knew the ask was unreasonable, had always known, but desperation had made him grasp at any solution that seemed concrete and immediate. "What do I do then?" he whispered. "You do the actual work," I said. "You build a real relationship with him. You show up. You listen. You help where you can with your own resources, not mine. You become a father now, even though it's 19 years too late. There are no shortcuts. No purchased reconciliations. Just the slow, painful work of earning trust you never deserved." My mother, when I talked to her about it, was a voice of clarity despite her own devastation. "Your father wants someone to share his guilt," she said. We were sitting in the kitchen, both of us clutching cups of tea that had long gone cold. "He chose you. Don't let him. I've lost 30 years of trust to his secret. You don't need to lose your apartment too." She paused, staring out the window at the backyard where I'd played as a child. "His son is a victim," she continued. "That boy didn't ask to be born into that situation, didn't ask to be abandoned, didn't ask to lose his mother. He deserves compassion. But you don't have to become another victim to give him that compassion. Your father's guilt is his to carry. Distributing it to others isn't redemption, it's diffusion. It doesn't actually help anyone heal. It just spreads the wound around." She was right. She usually was. Update 5. The Real Conversation. I met my half-brother again about a week later. This time, I was honest with him about everything. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Our father asked me to give you half my apartment, as compensation for his absence. I'm not going to do that." His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't look angry. Just confused. "But I want you to know it's not because I don't acknowledge you as family," I continued. "It's because your compensation shouldn't come from me. It should come from him. He's the one who owes you 19 years. Not me. I was 8 years old when he made his choice. I didn't have an affair. I didn't abandon anyone. My apartment doesn't belong on those scales." My half-brother was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed how I saw the entire situation. "I didn't ask for your apartment. I didn't even know about any of this until you just told me. I just wanted to know who my father was. To have some connection to the other half of where I came from. I'm not here to take things from you." He paused, fiddling with his coffee cup. "Our father is dealing with guilt by trying to spread it around. I get it. He feels terrible, and property seems like something concrete he can point to and say, 'Look, I did something.' But I don't want your apartment. I want answers. History. Maybe eventually, a brother. That's not something you can buy with a property transfer. That's when I knew my father's plan had never been about what my half-brother actually needed. It was about what my father needed, to feel like he'd done something, to have a tangible gesture that proved his redemption. A property transfer would have felt like something while being essentially nothing. A band-aid on a wound that required surgery. I can't give you my apartment, I said. But I can help in other ways. If you want to go to community college, I'll help with books and supplies. If you need a reference for a better job, I'll provide one. If you want to know about our family history, our grandparents, where we came from, the stories I grew up hearing, I'll share what I know. I can be a brother without being a bank. If that's enough, let's try this. If it's not, I understand. My half-brother looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, small, hesitant, but genuine. That's more than enough, he said. That's actually what I was hoping for. The resolution. It's been a year since my father dropped his bomb. The family looks different now, feels different, probably will never be the same. But we're still here, still trying, still navigating the wreckage of a secret that lasted 2 decades. My parents are in counseling. Their marriage is uncertain. My mother still hasn't moved back into the master bedroom, and there are silences between them that feel like chasms. But they're talking. Working through it. Whether they stay together remains to be seen, but at least they're doing the honest work of examining what's left. My father is building a relationship with his other son. It's awkward, slow, painful in ways that are sometimes difficult to watch. He doesn't know how to be a father to a grown man. He missed all the easy parts, the childhood games, the homework help, the graduations and milestones. Now he has to start from scratch with someone who is essentially a stranger, trying to earn trust he never deserved in the first place. There are no shortcuts. No purchased reconciliations. Just the slow, grinding work of showing up, listening, and trying to be present in whatever small ways he can. It's harder than writing someone else's check would have been. That's the point. My half-brother and I have met maybe 10 times in the past year. We're not brothers in the full sense. We don't have shared memories, inside jokes, the easy shorthand of people who grew up together. But we're something. We text occasionally. We get coffee when our schedules align. I helped him with the first semester's books when he enrolled in community college, as promised. Not an apartment. Just books. A small thing but real. He seems more stable now, more hopeful. Having a name for his father, a connection to his other family, seems to have given him something solid to stand on. He mentioned last time we talked that he's thinking about transferring to a 4-year program once he finishes his associate's degree. He has direction now, possibility, a sense that his story isn't finished yet. We were at a diner last week, sharing a plate of fries neither of us was particularly hungry for. He'd been telling me about a professor who encouraged him to apply for a scholarship, and I'd been listening and occasionally offering advice when it seemed useful. I thought finding my father would give me answers, he said eventually. Instead I got more questions. But also a brother. Sort of. I nodded. Sort of is a start. We ate in comfortable silence after that. 2 strangers who share DNA, building something real because the easy path was refused. Final thoughts. My father had a secret son for 19 years. When the secret came out, he wanted me to transfer half my apartment to this brother I never knew existed. Compensation, he called it. Balancing the scales. But they weren't my scales. I didn't have the affair. I didn't abandon anyone. I was 8 years old when my father made his choice, and 28 when he decided I should pay for it. I refused. Not because I don't care about my half-brother. I do, in the complicated way you care about strangers who share your blood. But because my apartment isn't a redemption coupon for my father's guilt. He wanted an easy gesture, transfer property, feel absolved, move on. That's not how guilt works. That's not how relationships work. That's not how anything real works. He abandoned a child for 19 years, then asked me to compensate that child with my apartment. My apartment. That I bought. Because he felt guilty. His affair, his abandonment, his guilt, but my payment. That's not making things right. That's outsourcing consequences. My father said my apartment would balance the scales. What scales? I didn't tip them. I didn't have an affair. I didn't abandon anyone. The scales are between him and his son. My apartment doesn't belong on those scales at all. He protected his own assets, the house is mortgaged, retirement is for Mom and me. But my assets? Available for redistribution. His guilt, his problem, my solution. The logic only works if my stuff doesn't count as really mine. The half-brother didn't know about the apartment demand. My father was using him as a prop for his own redemption, not actually asking what the kid needed. What he needed was a father. What my father offered was my property. Those aren't the same thing. They're not even close. My father said I'd just be giving up something to gain a brother. But I didn't need to buy a brother. The brother was already there, wanting connection, not compensation. My father was the one who needed to buy absolution. He just wanted to use my currency. My half-brother said, "I don't want your apartment, I want answers." That's when I knew my father's plan was never about what the kid needed. It was about what my father needed, to feel like he'd done something. A property transfer would have felt like something while being nothing. My mother said, "Your father wants someone to share his guilt, don't let him." She lost 30 years of trust to his secret. She understood, his guilt is his to carry. Spreading it doesn't lighten it. It just hurts more people. My half-brother didn't want my apartment. He wanted a father, and failing that, maybe a brother. I can try to be a brother. I helped with his college books. We get coffee sometimes. We're building something real, slowly, awkwardly, without property transfers or purchased forgiveness. That's harder than what my father wanted. But it's honest. My apartment stays mine. My father's guilt stays his. And somewhere in between, two strangers with the same jawline are figuring out what family means when it wasn't given to you, when you have to build it from scratch, one coffee at a time. TLDR, father revealed he had a secret son from an affair 19 years ago. Asked me to transfer half my apartment to this half-brother as compensation for his years of abandonment. I refused because his guilt isn't my debt to pay. Turned out my half-brother never asked for or wanted my apartment. He just wanted family connection. We're building a real relationship now, on honest terms, without property transfers. My father is doing the actual hard work of becoming a father at long last. My apartment stays mine. Some scales can't be balanced with real estate.